Hello, good evening, happy Friday. So a couple of weeks ago, I posted a video. It was called a no nonsense book unhaul, and somebody commented on the video. The username Call Me Tomorrow 65. They said, "Are you still doing the 1066 reading project thing?" And that got me thinking that no, I was not. So, a little context for some of the people who may not be avid followers of my channel, which I assume is very few. But a few months ago, over the summer, I made a video called Booktube Discussion Reading Projects. And I asked questions about like how do you go about doing a reading project? And two, I indicated my desire to do a project of my own on 1066 and the Norman Conquest of England. Now, I got a lot of good feedback from that video, and there was also, of course, the response video from Steve Donahue that was both enlightening, because who knows more about reading projects than him, and it was also funny because he had some strange tangents that I don't exactly remember the content of, but it was a fun response. So over the summer, I read a few books on 1066 and the Normans and the English, but I ran out of books in my collection that dealt with the subject, and I didn't really make any moves to acquire any more books. But something very magical happened. And that magical thing is the moment when everything comes together to conspire, the alchemist style, where the universe conspires to aid me in my journey. So I'm going to crack open a beer and going to talk about some of the books that I hauled recently relating to 1066 and English history. Cheers. All right, so I have 3 separate hauls to talk about, and I'm going to talk about them separately. First, this was just a brain fart of mine. I totally forgot that in August, I made a few purchases on my Kobo. I'm on the Kobo app right now for on my iPad, but it goes to my Kobo e-reader. And I totally forgot that I bought 3 William the Conqueror biographies. This is my collection on Kobo. I don't know if you can see that, but it's William I by Mark Morris. This biography is from the Penguin Monarchs series, which covers every monarch from maybe Alfred the Great all the way up until Elizabeth II, who died a few years ago. So I have never seen one of these Penguin Monarchs books in the wild in the United States. Maybe I don't go to the right used bookshops or anything, but I have not seen any. But yeah, William I got that by Mark Morris. And then 2 older biographies that I don't really know anything about. That's William the Conqueror by Jacob Abbott and William the Conqueror by Edward Freeman. So I got a little bit of William the Bastard content to read through. So that's cool. I can do it on my e-reader. So there's not really any limitations there. So yeah, I just forgot that I had bought those. So those are on the docket. I started the Mark Morris biography on my iPad, but I'm going to table that because I have a library book that I need to talk about. But yeah, William the Conqueror biographies, 3 of them. Next up, we got a new release in English history. A new release. And I foolishly went and requested that my library buy this book. As soon as I saw that it was coming out, I went, clicked on the thing. I said, request. We should get this because it's a cool new English history book. And I got the reply email back, and I failed to search up this book in their system. It had already been ordered. And that book is David Woodman's The First King of England. This is a biography of Athelstan. Athelstan and the Birth of a Kingdom. Now, Athelstan was the grandson of Alfred the Great. And this is in the 10th century AD, or what is the new one? CE, 10th century CE, AD, whatever. And some people consider Alfred the Great the first king of England, but Athelstan was kind of the first one to consolidate the whole territory of England proper as we know it now under one Anglo-Saxon banner. Alfred did hold off the Vikings and gain some territory, but he didn't really go up to the north. And then Edward, who was Alfred's son, he expanded a little, but didn't do it to the extent that Athelstan did. Now, you can even see from my library, it says new. This came out, I believe, in September. The reason I'm getting it so late is because I wasn't quick enough to put this on hold at the library, and somebody else did, and then they waited a couple weeks after the due date to turn it in. I was scared they weren't even going to turn it back in after it had been like 10 days. But yeah, we got a couple blurbs on the front. From Tom Holland, he says, thrillingly epic. And from Dan Jones, say fascinating and vital. Now, I have never read a David Woodman book, but he's a professor and fellow in history at Robinson College, University of Cambridge. He's written a book on Edward the Confessor. Wow. I'll have to find that. But yeah, new English history book. I know Steve Donahue has already read this because I saw it on Open Letters Review. I don't know if any other booktubers have been talking about it. Maybe John David from Nicholas of Autrecourt. He seems like he might read that. I don't know if he's ready yet. But I'm going to read this next because this is exciting and it's new and it's Athelstan. It is a little before 1066, but only 1 century before. So, yeah. That was part 2 of the haul. Now I have six books that I bought to talk about. And you might be wondering, how did I get 6 books on English history just like that? And I'll tell you, my library twice a year has a book sale, really big book sale, countywide. And I try to work that sale every year or every time it happens as a volunteer, just to give back to the library, and plus it's kind of fun. It's like being a librarian for the day, but you don't need a master's degree to do it. And one of the perks of working at least one shift is that you get to go to a volunteers only pre-sale before anybody else gets to go to the sale. So I did that a couple days ago. I went to the volunteers only session and I bought these 6 books. They're kind of lame books, so I don't think anybody's going to be missing them from the real shoppers. But just go through them right now really quick. They're all around the time of 1066 or a little before or a little after. So first up, we got The Viking Wars, War and Peace in King Alfred's Britain, 789 to 955. This is by Max Adams. It's a thick book, but it's only 500 pages. And I know it says King Alfred's Britain, but these years expand before King Alfred. But yeah, it just talks about the relations and the fighting between the Anglo-Saxons and the Vikings, who were sea-born neighbors and had a lot to dispute about. So, yeah, I don't know. Looks cool. Cool cover. Nature. There's a longboat in the back. Viking Wars, Max Adams. I know there's a different title that it was published under. It was like King Aelfred's Britain or something like that. I don't know. Next up, this is very 1066 aligned. We have Queen Emma and the Vikings by Harriet O'Brien. Got a nice little hardcover here from Bloomsbury. Subtitled, A History of Power, Love, and Greed in 11th Century England. Now, Queen Emma was a Norman lady who married King Ethelred the Unready, King of England. Ethelred was a king before Edward the Confessor, who died in 1066, and then there was turmoil after that. But Emma was married to King Ethelred, and then later when the Vikings invaded England and conquered, she moved on from Ethelred. She married Canute, who was the Danish Viking king of England for a decade and a half or so. So she had two bloodlines. And she was distantly related to William the Conqueror as well, I think, through one of her siblings. She was like a great aunt of William or something like that. One of Emma's children was Edward the Confessor, which is why William the Conqueror shared some of the blood that Edward did and why he thought he should be the successor instead of Harold Godwinson. So, blah, blah, blah. A cool hardcover, but I did read a little bit about this book, and apparently it doesn't really cover Queen Emma of Normandy at all, or not how it should for a book of this title. So, not high on my list, but it was relevant, so I got it. All right. Next book in the haul, we got The Birth of the West by Paul Collins. This is Rome, Germany, France, and the creation of Europe in the 10th century. Now, this doesn't directly align with England or 1066. It's before, and I checked the index. There's not many mentions of the English figures that were operating at that time compared to people like Rome, Germany, France, blah, blah, blah. But I think based on the subtitle, it would stand to be a good primer contextually for the European stage in the century preceding 1066 and the conquest. And I'm sure the Normans, since it talks about France, I'm sure the Normans are heavily involved here since they were in France in the 10th century. So, I know Paul Collins, he's a former Catholic priest, master's degree in theology from Harvard, doctor of philosophy in history from Australian National University. So, Birth of the West, love the cover. All right. Fourth book in the haul, we got Foundation by Peter Ackroyd. This is the first, I believe it's the first book in his History of Britain series. I'm not too familiar. This is the history of England from its earliest beginnings to the Tudors. And this is just a sweeping history of England. Earliest beginnings, Stonehenge, however many thousands of years ago that was. I don't know. I know Ken Follett just wrote a Stonehenge book. Kind of weird, but I bet it's good. And it goes until the Tudors, who he takes us from the primeval forests of England's prehistory to the death in 1509 of the first Tudor king, Henry VII. So this, I don't know if I'll read it soon, but it's another book that I'll definitely poke through, see what he has to say on certain topics. Maybe he has something good to say about the conquest or the Anglo-Saxons, or maybe I could learn a little bit about post-conquest, because I'm not totally solid on that yet. Here, fifth book, we got a cool little reference work, The Kings and Queens of England by Ian Crofton. Now, this isn't a proper book. This is, who is the king during this time? Here we got Edmund Ironside and Svein Forkbeard. This has when they reigned, little biography, a timeline of like what happened in their lives, and then key events through paragraphs and photos and such. So yeah, this isn't something you just read through. Here's a picture of, here's like Harold Godwinson with a picture of the Bayeux Tapestry. So yeah, this will be good reference for mostly my later lack of knowledge in English kings, like after William the Conqueror and William Rufus. I start to lose it because I haven't read much about the Plantagenets and the Tudors and what have you. So I'm excited to poke through this one as well. We got Kings and Queens of England by Ian Crofton. And it goes as far as Miss Elizabeth II, which is nice. So there we go. And last but not least, we got a huge book. We got Roy Strong's The Story of Britain. Now, this is another big history book of Britain. It's from the Celts to Margaret Thatcher. The story of this extraordinary island people is told here in one continuous, breathtaking narrative. Blah, 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 blah. A one-volume history of Britain. It's got kind of glossy pages with a lot of... Oh. If I was monetized, I would get demonetized for showing you this, I bet. Not really. There's naked people. But yeah, I don't know much about these books, or this book, or any of these books. But they were relevant to my studies, so I wanted to get them and read them. So, yeah, let me know if you know of these books that I've held up, especially the last 6. If you're like, no, that's a bad book, you shouldn't read that, you should get rid of it. Or if it's really good and I should take a look at it ASAP, also let me know. So, yeah, tons of books on English history, which I guess I'm an English history guy now. I read a couple months ago The Anglo-Saxons by Mark Morris, and that was fantastic. It's a huge book. It covers a ton of territory, and it's really good. So, yeah, these are all the books that I hauled recently that I wasn't expecting to haul. So thank you to Call Me Tomorrow for that comment. Kind of jogged my motivation into picking up some more books and continuing with the reading project. So that's that. Happy Friday. Have a good day, and I'll talk to you later.